distancing itself from its creation. And the Prime Minister is out there telling the rest of the world that we should create some steel curtain. There used to be an iron curtain in Europe to keep the communists back. Now we have a steel curtain that she's advocating that we create in the Western Hemisphere to protect us from criminals. Now, that doesn't make any sense. The criminals are already within our borders. And what borders we have are wide open. Right? Drugs are coming free sheet from St. Vincent to Tobago to Trinidad, accompanied by arms and ammunition, and that is known to the state, and precious little is happening about it. We hear a lot of talk now about protecting our maritime perimeter. This is where the government has dismantled what little we had, and right now there's precious little in place. The last we heard from the government was when they talk about going to Colombia to buy vessels. We question that. We have heard nothing about that since. So whatever the Prime Minister is saying now in Haiti is of little consequence to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, because with the Minister of National Security, the Director of the National Security Operations Center being what they are and saying what they're saying here now, and nobody taking responsibility for what is happening to us in Trinidad and Tobago, we are fearful that nothing will change for the better in the not too distant future. So it leaves us to what happens with this matter of this unit, which the government is trying to pretend doesn't exist. There is sufficient information in the public domain to show that this unit has in fact been functioning. It has been functioning. And it was acting as an agent, supported and resourced by the National Security Operations Center under the Minister of National Security. And if the Minister of National Security is prepared to distance himself from the operations of the National Security Operations Center, then we today demand his resignation. The National Security Operations Center is the government's response to violent crime in Trinidad and Tobago. And if the minister is prepared to not acknowledge the existence of that center and its behavior with respect to operatives under it, then the minister has no place being in office. So for the umpteenth time, we call for the resignation of the Minister of National Security. And with respect to the director, if, as I am demonstrating, he is prepared to lie to the public when things like this happen, then he has no business holding that job as director of the National Security Operations Center. We must come to a place where we can believe what is said to us by public officials in Trinidad and Tobago. It's bad enough to have the politicians lying to you, but when the public servants jump and follow suit, well, this has gone beyond acceptability. And we are not prepared to accept any more of the lies from officialdom in Trinidad and Tobago. They come from all the offices. And in this case, it is the crime situation. Our lives are at stake. And we just have too many lies, too many lies, too many lies. And I'm calling today for an investigation into this matter. And because police officers are supposed to have been involved, it should fall to the Police Complaints Authority to examine, to question those persons who are talking to the public about this matter, to find out if police officers are involved at any level. And the Police Service Commission must have an interest in this matter, because if this could be happening, and the Commissioner of Police could easily say, I am unaware of it, the Police Service Commission must satisfy itself that these statements are true and correct, and that the public has nothing to fear. And the National Security Operations Center has been shown not to be ready to come clean with the public. And since that agency reports directly to the Prime Minister, I'm calling on the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago on a return from Haiti to speak to the country on this matter. We are not prepared to accept the creation of these units in Trinidad and Tobago, especially when they fall under the direction of people like the Minister of National Security. It was the same Minister of National Security who, among his first actions, improperly took agents of the Defense Force, went to Sanford, went to Debe, and took high-handed action against protesters. We objected to the minister's behavior then, and to now know that this agency had in fact been brought into being and had operated. This is the thin end of the wedge, and we are saying it has to stop now before it gets any worse. And finally, I want to tell you something. During the budget debate, there was an issue of a large amount of money being made available to the Ministry of National Security, for which the government could not and would not explain. I pressed that issue in the Parliament to the Minister of Finance, who was reluctant to answer. What is this money available for? And the government was silent, and I pressed the Minister of Finance. And eventually he said to me, it's a matter of national security, and therefore I cannot tell you. Pressing him further, I asked him, is it for expenditure on personnel or equipment? Acknowledging that it is national security, and you may not want to expose the details, at least you could say whether it is for equipment or personnel. The Minister of Finance hesitatingly answered, it is for equipment. And that is where the matter ended. Against the background of this unit operating at the time, and an expectation to be paid substantial sums of money, and the behavior of the Minister of National Security then and now, will you hold it against me if I come to the conclusion that it was the intention of the government to fund something like this in a clandestine way? Or that the climate could have existed for monies of that nature to be funding something like this unbeknownst to the people of Trinidad and Tobago? Because had the payments been made to the expectation of Mr. Cordner and his crew, we may never have known that they were operating. And that is why eternal vigilance is required where this government is concerned. So I'm calling today on those persons who can use their office to protect the public from this government insofar as they are able to. The Police Complaints Authority should investigate this matter by speaking to the persons who purported to have worked with the police on this matter. And the Police Service Commission should look into this matter to ensure that the authority of the Commissioner of Police, which has always been threatened by the current minister, has not in fact been trampled upon either by the director of the NSOC or the minister, because these people claim to have been reporting to the minister by way of Mr. Hira. And if that was so, where is the authority of the Commissioner of Police? We cannot see that serious authority to people who do not respect the rights and security of people of Trinidad and Tobago. Something has to be done about this. This cannot be swept under the carpet. And whereas Mr. Hira and Mr. Warner are prepared to pretend not to know anything about it, notwithstanding the facts in the public domain, and the witnesses out there to speak to the authorities, the Prime Minister cannot pretend not to be interested in this matter. As head of the National Security Council, I call on the Prime Minister to come clean with the public of Trinidad and Tobago on this particular unit, its existence, its function, its purpose, and how this happened to come into the public domain.